Mayor Pete wants to run for president. This is like the least.
Mayor Pete is running for president.
He's already running for president, and he's doing the consultant-approved male podcast circuit. So I think he was on Barstool 2 or 3 weeks ago. Gavin Newsom's getting the same advice, and it
was just interesting to watch him go on all these male podcasts when right around the time where Ezra Klein had this theory about how his appeal is that he is able to talk about maleness and family in a way that nobody else can.
Yeah, right.
Wait, who?
Pete Buttigieg.
Just because he
like a consultant.
Like a consultant.
Right. And it's odd that we're still his analysis of him as a strong candidate still doesn't include what you're going to do for working people, which is my litmus test for any Democratic presidential candidate.
I love keeping it to the aesthetic realm.
Exactly. But here is Buttigieg on Pod Saved America.
More than half of Senate Democrats just voted to oppose the sale of over $500 million worth of U.S. bombs and guns to Israel. Would you have voted to oppose sending those weapons?
I think we need to insist that if American taxpayer funding is going to weaponry that is going to Israel, that is not going to things that shock the conscience. And look, we
Pause
see
it for 1
images every
second.
day.
I just want to get the standard shock the conscience. I mean, we already have laws, incidentally, right. About the use of the Leahy laws, about the use of weapons, and about breaches of humanitarian laws, laws of war. And it's quite clear they were breached. We know by reporting that the Biden administration lied about it. So we're so far well beyond that. But shock the conscience, I mean, what shocks Emma's conscience versus my conscience versus, I mean, if anything, Brian's conscience.
If anything.
I mean, that's
Alan Dershowitz?
But that's exactly, but that's the point. It's something that, definitely we shouldn't do it shock the conscience, but it's also, how do you measure that? But go back. All right.
I think we need to insist that if American taxpayer funding is going to weaponry that is going to Israel, that is not going to things that shock the conscience. And look, we see images every day that shock.
I just want this mealy mouth stuff is that let it be known that this is identical to the Biden administration's policy in Gaza. So if you want more of the status quo in 2028, let's get out ahead of it. If you were in favor of Biden's policies in Gaza, this very passive language about the genocide that led us to this moment of just hundreds of thousands being killed, then support Pete Buttigieg, because this is exactly what he's saying.
He's one of the first dominoes that helped Biden consolidate power in the 2020 primary. Yeah. He's directly responsible.
He was in the administration.
Yeah.
The conscience. So much of this is complicated, but what's not complicated is that if a child is starving because of a choice made by a government, that is unconscionable. And I think especially including voices who care about Israel, who believe in Israel's right to exist, who have stood with Israel in response to the unbelievable cruelty and terrorism of October 7th. I think there's a reason why so many of those voices are speaking up now too, because this is not
Pause
just
it for a second. What's fascinating about this is all of the stuff that's actually happening in Gaza right now, he speaks in hypothetical. If we see a child if they don't have food, which, look, we know is happening. There is no one on the planet except for Netanyahu who is denying this is happening. Or Netanyahu's not even denying that it's happening now. He's just sort of blaming it on other people, maybe. What happened to Israel, he talks in definitive terms. It happened.
October 7th, horror.
And now he's saying that, even stalwarts of Israel supporters are admitting this hypothetical. I mean,
permission structure changing.
Exactly. It's
he's like a ChatGPT bot.
Exactly.
unbelievable cruelty and terrorism of October 7th. I think there's a reason why so many of those voices are speaking up now too, because this is not just something that is on its face and in itself a moral catastrophe. It is also a catastrophe for Israel for the long run.
How do you think the next administration should handle our relationship with Israel? Do you think it should change based on what Netanyahu has done the last several years?
Well, certainly Netanyahu can't be the only voice or the only compass for what should happen in the U.S.-Israel relationship. And no matter how strongly, or especially because of how strongly you might believe in Israel's right to exist and defend itself, you don't have to make excuses for the choices that Netanyahu is making, especially because they are often made not only in the name of the Israeli people, but in the name of a U.S. alliance. I think that we, as Israel's strongest ally and friend, you put your arm around your friend when there's something like this going on.
Committing genocide.
And talk about what we're prepared to do together. It certainly cannot be what we see right now from this administration and this president talking about beachfront property in Gaza before he's prepared to talk about human suffering in Gaza.
Do you think it's time to
Okay, so I
recognize
just want to, I'm going to sum up and just condense that for you. Should we change our stance towards Israel in a future presidency? Yes, we should definitely not promote beachfront property in Gaza. Go ahead.
Nailed it.
And it certainly cannot be what we see right now from this administration and this president talking about beachfront property in Gaza before he's prepared to talk about human suffering in Gaza.
Do you think it's time to recognize a Palestinian state?
I think that's a profound question that arouses a lot of the biggest problems that have happened with Israel's survival, Israel's right to survival in the diplomatic scene. And many of the people who have taken that step historically have done so for different reasons than what we see happening with European countries. I think we need to step back and we need to do whatever it takes to ensure that there is a real two-state solution and that no one, not even the likes of Netanyahu, can veto the international community's commitment to a two-state solution where you have Palestinians and Israelis living with safety, with security, with rights.
With segregation.
I believe that can happen, but we have to actually show some commitment to it.
Do you believe, what was the question again? I can't even remember now.
Should we recognize a Palestinian state?
I believe that it's something that we need to definitely think about. People have thought about it.
It's like an animatronic display at an APAC museum.
It's fascinating.
And that there is no difference in that answer functionally than the Republicans right now. There's no difference. Like, he's saying that if Israel were doing the things that we all see is happening right before our very eyes, then we might take some sort of vague action to prevent a moral catastrophe when we are in the midst of one of the worst crimes in the history of humanity right now. So he enables, with the Democratic and liberal Zionists, enable it with their passive language. They just approach it differently rhetorically, basically. That guy's not serious. And that's a difference between somebody like Zohran Mamdani is a very talented speaker. And I will give Buttigieg that he's a talented speaker, although it wasn't on display in that answer. But he doesn't believe in anything. So there's no conviction behind what he says. And everything comes from his consultant perspective as a McKinsey bread price fixing dude, where it's like never about politics that are from the bottom up and capturing that energy and getting people engaged in politics on that level, which is what Zoran or Bernie or AOC are engaged in. He's all about how can people basically be manipulated by my language. And we're over that era. Like, Obama was the king of that. And he ran in a more progressive way than he governed. And people now feel the implications of that. So they're less interested in a guy like this. Yes, there might be some Democratic voters that are more liberal or honestly affluent, suburbanite people that are going to be charmed by this guy. But this is not the politics that is transformational. And maybe we could win with someone like this, but it wouldn't be a landslide where we could change our politics for good, which is what we need. We need a working class movement to take back the country from the fascists.
Why doesn't this stuff come up? Presidential candidate 2019-2020 campaign donations. Pete is number 3 with pro-Israel donations behind Trump and Biden. $191,000, hundreds of thousands of dollars to run for president.
If it was the case that Buttigieg received
yeah, exactly.
the third amount,
that would be bad.
And there was a circumstance in which people were concerned about that, that would obviously be an issue for people who would view themselves through that context.
Yeah.
And that's something I think we really need to deal with.
I don't understand the word ally. That people just accept that. Like, can you expand on what an ally means? Because is an ally to Pete Buttigieg? Because it does seem that they're allied with his personal ambitions. But this is just accepted across media, that you say it on CNN, you say it on PodSave, that as if this word has a meaning. We've given Israel hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars.
The problem is that they're not
what?
They're
for them
not
to
an
buy
ally.
our politicians like this
They're
and
not an
massacre
ally.
people.
They're not an ally in the traditional sense. It's actually and it's also not a sovereign nation in the traditional sense. They function as our colony. And also when you talk about this relationship as one that would be like equivalent to our relationship with the UK or to other countries that we're allied with,
South Korea.
you enable what I'm seeing increasingly on the right, which is this idea that AIPAC needs to be registered as a foreign lobbyist group. And I agree that should happen. But a lot of people in AIPAC are Americans. And a lot of people in AIPAC or Kufi are right-wing Christian evangelicals. And you see Marjorie Taylor Greene and other right-wingers talk about how basically it is a foreign lobbyist cabal within the United States that is secretly running our foreign policy. Now, Israel's intelligence being connected with ours and potentially having connections, seemingly clearly having some connections to Jeffrey Epstein, like that is a story and it's a part of the story.
Or just spying on our government.
But we come first. American empire is the big bully in this, and Israel is our colony and a tool of that, basically, and how it functions. The way the right wants to talk about this is anti-Semitic in that way, where they want to say that we're being infiltrated by Israel, and Israel is controlling the puppet string secretly. That's not the case. Israel does our dirty work, as the new chancellor of Germany just said, for the West and basically the United States. So that's where, whatever stops the genocide, we should have supported, Marjorie Taylor Greene's stripping of the Iron Dome funding, defensive funding.
It, yeah.
I would have 100% supported that.
Of course.
But let's be clear about what the difference is in how the right is approaching it, because I increasingly see it going down a very disturbing path, the way they speak about Israel in a very conspiratorial way that removes it from an overall critique of American empire and colonialism.
Well, and this is aided entirely by Pete Buttigieg acting as if we haven't already been putting our arms around them for 2 years as they've been doing this.
If it was the case that our arm was around them for 2 years, in that event, that would be problematic. If we were in a position where we felt the arm being around our friend was not bringing about the ends that we wanted to. And then at that instance, if that was the case, we would have to look at that and decide, what are we going to do something, or are we going to do something about it? And I think that's very important.
It's a profound question.
Thank you for all those ifs. What a call to action. I'm inspired by politics again.
It really is actually, if you get into the rhythm of it, super easy to not answer anything. We're going to get to calls if the circumstance is such that calls would be effective. But of course, we don't want to be in a position where we're doing something that's ineffective. And so I would hesitate in that circumstance to even lock ourselves in a way that would otherwise undermine all the other things that we're trying to do that are important and good.
Yeah. Look, what situation over there is so complex and inscrutable that I need to take $190,000 to run my campaign and basically take their talking points because of how complex it is. Let me hear one side.
If we're in the instance of wanting to further examine this question, and it's an important question, and we should be, and it's one, and I'm glad all of you guys have brought this up.
Thank you for asking me.
Thank you for asking me that.
A little flattery for
I think
you.
it really gets to the crux of what it is we all need to look at as Americans. All right, let's go. I feel like that's the way I'm going to answer Saul now.
Sam, are you hungry?
You know, that's a great question because there are circumstances where one feels like one is hungry. And if that was the case, then I would definitely respond positively to that. But it's also important to keep in mind that people are sometimes not hungry.
Sometimes they're even full.
And sometimes they're full. And sometimes that even happens with just a little bit of food that you've eaten. But
I've been hungry and full in the same day, actually.
In fact, one of the first things I'm going to do shortly after this is to examine that question.
We need to look closely at this and take it seriously.
Seriously. It's not a joke. That's one of the things I would have to say. It is not a joke. Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.